So, guys, this is my review for the Case Study of Vanitas, episode 11. With that, let's jump right into this review of episode 11. Let's get it. This episode was called Promises, and this episode was more centered around Vanitas and Jane. They pretty much went out on a date, but with that, there were some other things going on the side. There were a couple of funny moments, but there was something very interesting that was going on the side. Well, basically in a different place that I'm gonna talk about during this review. But the it was like the main focus was more so on Vanitas and Jane's date, but there were a couple of things that were going on during this date, and then there were a couple of things that were happening elsewhere that I definitely want to talk about here in episode 11. Now, the thing about this episode, it was a very fun and funny episode. Again, like I said, the main focus was on Jane and Vanitas' date. Obviously, we know that throughout the anime so far up to this point, Jane has been stating that she doesn't have feelings for Vanitas, that he's egotistical, he's self-centered, blah blah blah. She even brings these points up during their date. But she ends up going to Dami to ask her for help, to ask her how to stop having Vanitas approach her in such a in the way that he has, because he has feelings towards Jane, right? And with that, Dami pretty much thinking in her mind, like, I have no clue how to do this, but she pretty much just told her, like, hey, you go on a date with him, you tell him that you love him, and he will despise the fact that you are indeed in love with him, because he's reciprocating that already. He will despise that. But at the same time, that's when things get interesting as their date progresses. Now, this is one of the funnier things that was occurring here in episode 11, is that Dante he couldn't believe that Vanitas and Jane were out together, hanging out together on this date, so he was kind of following them. But he ends up running into Dami here on his right. He bumps into her, and then we find out that Dami is following them. So it's like two different ways of each other, of them following Jane and Vanitas. Dante's like saying, like, this is dangerous. He's basically thinking, like, this is dangerous. This is that they're doing this, and I need to keep a close watch on Vanitas and Jane. While Dami's like, I'm following them because this is just so romantic, and I need to see how this plays out, because I believe that this could benefit both of them and getting them to have a relationship. So it was just really, really funny that these two bumped into each other, and then throughout the date they're following them throughout the entire time that Vanitas and Jane are hanging out. So it was just really, really hilarious to see their interactions and reactions throughout Jane and Vanitas' date here in episode 11. Throughout their date, Vanitas is actually being a gentleman towards Jane. They're going out. He's basically taking her on a tour of the town, basically throughout Paris. They eat together, and throughout this date, Jane is actually catching feelings. Like, she's really just honestly catching feelings. She just doesn't understand that the side, the affectionate side, I want to say the Cupid arrow effect on her is kicking in, but she just doesn't realize and doesn't understand that she is catching feelings for Vanitas. So, it's just one of those things that it was just really hilarious to see her go through these emotions, and she's trying to figure out and try to understand, like, why, because she keeps telling herself, like, I despise him, I hate him, I don't know why, my heart is racing, I just don't get it. But I'm just sitting back and I'm watching this, and I'm just like, girl, you're starting to really like Vanitas, and that, to me, that should be an okay feeling, because you're getting to know him outside of the normal realm of things, simply because you're on this date with him. So, yeah, it's okay. It's fine. You know, that's just my take on their date. On a different part of town, basically Ruth and Noé are out to lunch. They're hanging out to lunch. They're having a conversation, and basically what was happening here is that was trying to get some information on Vanitas, and it got really like the conversation went in one direction and then it just went in a totally different direction towards the end of the episode. So he was like talking to Noé and asking him questions about Vanitas, you've been around him so much, you have to know something. But Noé basically told him like, you know, I don't know much. I still don't know much about him, but he acts one way, but then he acts a totally different way. And this is just what I see from him every day. And Ruthen's basically said like, but I feel like a specific person, again talking about Vanitas, but he didn't say his name. I still feel like a specific person would take advantage of your kindness. And that's when Noé was like, you must be talking about Vanitas. But he was just saying like he wouldn't take advantage of me in that way. He's not that type of person. But then they end up bringing up Noé ends up bringing up the fact that because Vanitas has had this conversation with Noé where we've seen him talk about how he said openly and honestly that he believes that both vampires and humans are one and the same, because they act they're like their actions and stuff are literally the same. It's just that they're per their DNA, the only difference is that one is a vampire, one is a human, but their actions are still coinciding with each other in what they do and how they operate and function and live their lives and their belief systems and stuff. So when that occurs, then because again this conversation is we're going from this scene to Vanitas and Johnny, so we're going back and forth. But also too, Noé ends up reminding Ruthens about his past students, because he used to be a teacher, because Noé told him like, you remind me of a teacher as if you were my teacher from many moons ago. And Ruthens is basically saying like, I used to have students, but they all died, more than likely like during the vampire during the vampire human war. And he still told Noé that if you were my students I would have much joy. But like I said, he asked, Ruthens then asked Noé this question, and the question is, do you believe that humans and vampires are one and the same, like how Vanitas does? And once he answers his question, then this occurs right after. And it is this right here, basically, after Noé answers and says no, they're not one and the same, that Ruthens' response is you failed the test. And because they were eating and drinking stuff, that basically Noé it seemed like Ruthens drugged Noé, because he like fell out a little bit over the table, and then that's when Ruthens grabs him and he bites him on his neck. But that's pretty much the end of this scene. But while this is going on, something interesting is occurring between Vanitas and Johnny. So during the course of their date, they get to a bench. They sit. Vanitas ends up going away from the bench. He said he'll be back, and he wants her to ponder the question that he has, this question that he had for her. But she's basically like going through the process of trying to come up with a way to tell him that, that she loves him, to get him off of her back. But when something happens and that's the thing, Dante and Dami are still hiding out. They're still close by. They're like behind some trees or something. I can't remember. But what ends up happening is that some kids are playing around them. One of them gets tripped up and fall. They scrape their knee. Some blood is on the kid's knee, and Jane notices it, and then she the curse bearer starts to activate, and she starts to get the need and want to attack the kid to suck his blood. and then that's when Vanitas steps in and stops her. He has her bite his arm because she's going in for the attack. And then that's when we get here. So when we get here, they're having a conversation because she's going through the motions again, still trying to get control of herself, in which you kind of figure that once they get to this moment, you're thinking in your mind like she's more than likely going to suck Vanitas' blood, which she does indeed do that. But he asks her, like, are you a curse bearer? Because he asked her before, and I can't remember from what I can tell from this scene, she did not tell him yes or no. But she does indeed claim to be the curse bearer. But Vanitas basically tells her that he's not truly sure if that's the case or not. But he talks to her about this. He asks her the question, like, are you a curse bearer? She says yes. But then he asks her this specific question, and that is, did somebody else tell you not to say that you're a curse bearer, to not claim it? And then that's when we have sort of like what it seems like a flashback of this scene here. So this scene pops up. Now the thing is that in this scene they show the silhouette of the person standing with I want to say that like it's her looking up at the person, and we just see the silhouette. Now this is the next portion of that scene where it looks like she's like reaching out, trying to cover her eyes from this blinding light, but you see here this person through in between the two parts of her fingers here with the one eye and the teeth, that I honestly believe that this is actually Ruthen's here because of what because of the scene that we just saw between him and Noé, where he may have a play in this curse bearer thing. I'm not too sure. He more than likely he probably had a conversation with her about like he knows about her struggle with the curse bearer thing, and he's just telling her to don't say anything to anybody else, which is why he probably never took her out, because she still plays a key role in the fight against curse bearers and stuff. So I honestly believe that this is Ruthen's himself. But with that, basically Vanitas and Jeanne are having a conversation, and she basically is like, she sucked his blood, and she basically had another spot vision where she felt like she would, if she allowed this curse bearer thing to fully go through, that she would end up attacking little Luca, right? So she kind of feels like that she's still dangerous, and she would harm him. She doesn't want to do that. But basically Vanitas tells her, like, if it comes to that, if it gets to the point where you are getting taken over by the curse bearer thing, I promise you, he told her, I promise you that I will kill you myself. This is basically what he told her. She cries in his arms, and pretty much that's the end of episode 11. So very funny, very fun episode, but also more serious, basically the last 5+ minutes of the episode before the credits hit. So, but I really enjoyed this episode, guys. But like I said, I really believe that this is Ruthen's here who is hovering over her. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully we'll get the answers moving forward to episode 12 from the conversation that he had with Noé at that place, and then plus we may get more information on here, because again I believe this is Ruthen's. But what did you all think of episode 11 when you first sat down and watched it for the first time? Leave some comments in the comment section below if you feel up to it, guys. Let's talk about some things. But other than that, I will talk to you all next time with more The Case Study of Vanitas. Peace, guys.